You guys want to know a secret? Thousands of people got a Switch 2 for the holidays, and guess what? For some people, the honeymoon phase is already over, which begs the question, do you guys think that Nintendo knows that the number of people with buyer's remorse for the Switch 2 is growing every single day? Because whether you got a Switch 2 6 months ago or just 2 weeks ago, the reality is already setting in. It is technically bigger, it is technically better, but it's also just incredibly boring for a lot of people. But here's where it gets even crazier, because the Switch 2 is so underwhelming for some people that we are seeing something that I never thought we would see in 2026. Fans are actually ditching their brand new Switch 2 and rushing back to the Nintendo 3DS. That's right, folks. While the Switch 2 is collecting dust on shelves, the 15-year-old 3DS XL is exploding in price on eBay, hitting over $350. Think about that. People would rather pay more than the original sale price for a discontinued handheld from 2010 than continue playing Nintendo's latest big thing. Remember just a few weeks ago when everybody was saying we were just being a negative for questioning the value proposition of the Switch 2? Yeah, I mean, I feel completely vindicated, because clearly people are willing to spend hundreds of dollars on a console if they feel like the value is actually there. Even if the console is used and it's a decade old, if the games are good and the value proposition makes sense, people will show up to buy it. I feel like this is a lesson that Nintendo is learning the hard way. So today, let's do a deep dive into the growing wave of Switch 2 buyer's remorse and why the most exciting thing about Nintendo's future in 2026 might actually be their past. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, before we jump in, I just need to thank you guys, because you guys hyped my last video to be number 89 in the entire United States, which is just insane. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been liking the videos and using the new hype feature. We are starting 2026 off strong, and I owe it all to you guys, so thank you. Okay, let's jump right in here. The state of the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2025. Bigger, better, boring. This was just posted a couple of days ago, and we have a few articles we're going to cover in this video, but this is the one I want to start with because this is the one that made me realize that buyer's remorse for the Switch 2 is definitely a thing for some people, because the opening paragraph here says it all, ladies and gentlemen. Quote, "It doesn't feel like Nintendo just released a new console. Last year around this time we were inundated with weekly leaks about the Switch 2. They all pointed to the same thing. It would be a bigger, more powerful version of the console we already knew and loved. Nintendo kicked 2025 off by showing us a Switch 2 that was exactly that. It launched in June to significant fanfare and hype, and there has been surprisingly little to say about the Switch 2 ever since." Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I really, like, that is exactly how I feel about the Switch 2 personally. Like, there's just not a reason to pick it up right now. I don't have a good reason to play Nintendo's latest console. It has been 6 months. What is going on? What is the big thing that I'm supposed to be looking forward to? The most exciting thing about anything Nintendo related has been the fact that the official Pokemon Twitter account posted a quick video with Fat Pikachu. So you're telling me that the most exciting thing lately is a 30-year-old picture of Pikachu. The hype around this 20-second video clip is proof that Nintendo and Pokemon's best days are way behind us. The original tweet has 13 million views, and that's not even to count all the people that reposted this. Like Cerebi, for example, has 1.2 million on their re-upload. So let me get this straight. Your next Pokemon game, Pokemon Pokopia, is coming out in March, and yet the most exciting thing you can tweet about is a 30-year-old image of Pikachu, and your most exciting console right now, apparently according to buyers, is the 3DS. We'll talk about that later in this video. It's no wonder that people have buyer's remorse for the Switch 2, because yeah, it is bigger and technically it is better, but it's definitely boring. People are looking backwards, they're looking at the past, they're looking at the things that used to be good, and that's what they're excited about right now, and we just started 2026. The article goes on to say the Switch 2 looks lean, feels sleek, and runs older blockbusters and even some newer ones surprisingly well. Look at that. Even when they're complimenting the new console, they're talking about how good it runs the old stuff. Its boldest innovation is a video sharing feature that feels plucked out of 2006 and which I never heard anyone talk about. The quintessential smartphone upgrade of video game consoles, the Switch 2 set launch sales records but dominated the conversation less than anyone expected. Honestly, the main people that are driving the Switch 2 conversation right now are all of us on YouTube that are critical of what Nintendo has been doing lately. The article goes on to say Nintendo's latest flagship console doesn't break the mold. It remains first and foremost a machine for playing Nintendo games, most of which are sequels to franchises that have been around since last millennium. And it does that splendidly, even if the games themselves haven't always cleared the lofty bar set by the Switch 1's first year. Do I sound a little disappointed? I'm trying not to be. 2025 was a transition year for Nintendo's hardware, one that feels less like a clear passing of the baton than an extended farewell where everyone spends an extra 15 minutes gossiping at the door while putting on their coats before actually saying goodbye. The Switch 1 was a must-buy in 2017. In 2025, the Switch 2 is more of a nice to have. Bro, the author of this article is absolutely spitting. They have their finger on the pulse of the community. They know exactly how we feel. The hype for the Switch 2 completely collapsed. Everyone who has one is just like, yeah, it's fine, I'm enjoying it kind of, but really, like, I know there's going to be better stuff coming down the pipeline. That's like the biggest thing everyone is saying, and honestly, I hope that's the case, right? Because otherwise it's going to look even worse going into 2026. But anyway, the article moves on to talk about the hardware. You can tell when a certain line of hardware has matured by what people focus on. The raw specs, a refined form factor, new software features. With the Switch 2, it's a satisfying but mostly inconsequential gimmick. One of the first things anyone will do with the new device is feel the tug of magnets as the new Joy-Cons click into place on the sides of the console. 100 times later, it still delights me and yields an unwarranted flash of joy. Bro, that is true. It feels, if you've never done this on a Switch 2, you're missing out. To just snap those Joy-Cons on and off, as somebody who likes to fidget with things, oh, it feels good. They go on to say, if only the thumbstick nubs weren't still garbage. The other thing that stands out most about the Switch 2 is how much faster it charges. While the battery life overall isn't very impressive and is still sapped surprisingly quickly, even in sleep mode, it's now possible to get a mostly full charge in just 1 hour. This isn't a reason to upgrade a console, but it's one of the things I spend the most time doing with my Switch 2 besides playing it. The screen, slightly larger than that of its predecessor, also feels surprisingly revelatory. It's like you've been driving with the sun visor down and then you lift it up and reveal the rest of the horizon. The addition of these few inches of space feels like having a blast shield lifted from your face. It's not OLED, but the resolution is sharp, the colors are vibrant, and the overall build quality feels nice. This is also completely true. I feel like a lot of people have spent a lot of time criticizing the display on the Switch 2, but if we're being honest, it actually looks great. I mean, I'm just gonna say it looks fine. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you the truth. If you play on the Switch 2 in handheld mode, it looks really good. Okay, it just does. I don't know what to tell you. Does it look $500 good? I don't know. Okay, but as somebody who had an original Switch, going from a original Switch to the Switch 2, it's a million times better. It just is. And I know it's not OLED, but let me be honest with you guys, as someone who worked at Apple for over 6 years, 95% of consumers, and I know you're not going to believe me because you and I, we're both really into tech. Okay, we're deeply invested in this stuff, but I really need you guys to understand 95% of consumers do not know if a display is OLED. They really don't. They don't know if the refresh rate is 120 hertz. I genuinely mean this, and trust me, working at Apple exposes you to the most normie of normie people. Okay, they don't know. They really don't know. They, like, most people cannot tell. I know it sounds crazy, I know it sounds weird, but most people cannot and will not be able to tell that this screen is not OLED, and I'm here to tell you the screen does look fine. Okay, the article goes on to say, most importantly, the guts of the machine delivered the type of next-gen upgrade you'd want from a device that costs $150 more than its predecessor did at launch. It kept up well with modern third-party blockbusters like Cyberpunk 2077 and Star Wars Outlaws, and ran first-party Nintendo games with sprawling worlds like Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza with no major issues, at least in docked mode. It better not. Okay, again, for $150 more than the Switch 1, it better play those games well, especially when we're talking about games like Cyberpunk. Like, that game came out in 2020, by the way, so it's a 5-year-old game. It should definitely run that game well. Again, we're talking about Donkey Kong Bonanza, we're talking about Mario Kart World. If you can't run a Mario Kart game well, you've got a big problem. Okay, so I'm glad that Nintendo is passing this bar, even though this is kind of a low bar. Now, Star Wars Outlaws, I will concede, came out a little over a year ago. That's a modern game, it runs it well, fantastic, as it should. Okay, well, let's move on to the software side. The Switch 2 interface remains stubbornly bare bones in an era when the Xbox Series X and S and PS5 continue to add new bells and whistles to their home screen experiences. Game Chat, the Switch 2's actual big back of the box feature, performs fine but feels unmoored from the broader console experience. Meanwhile, the console itself can play Fortnite, Apex Legends, and Minecraft better than its predecessor, but compared to PS5, Xbox Series X or S, and PC, the Switch 2 remains just as fundamentally uninterested in being a social hub as the Switch was. It's the only major gaming platform not to be integrated with the biggest communication platform for gaming, Discord. Sharing game capture and images now requires a dedicated smartphone app from Nintendo's ever-growing repository of console features outsourced to second screens. It's not a terrible idea in principle, but it doesn't feel sane or streamlined in practice. Yeah, just to remind you guys, Nintendo has a music app. That's right, if you want to listen to Nintendo music officially, they didn't put it on Spotify, they didn't put it on Apple Music. It's a dedicated smartphone app. Like, what are we doing, bro? It just makes no sense. I don't know why. Just why it's music, bro. Come on. Let's move on to the games. Mario Kart World initially dazzled, but doesn't feel as full-bodied as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe does after years of post-release updates and DLC. Despite issuing a number of balance updates, the company has been weird about actually letting fans play the game they want to online. New add-ons for Mario Party Jamboree and Kirby in the Forgotten Land were nice upgrade incentives, but hardly groundbreaking. Kirby Air Riders, for all of Director Sakurai's pre-release hype, was nice, fun, fine. Donkey Kong Bonanza, an unexpected highlight, provided a novel gimmick and a crowd-pleasing ending to bookend an otherwise B+ experience. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, despite the nearly decade-long wait, was also less than transformative. Pokemon Legends EA delivered for Pokemon fans, bolstering what would have been an otherwise disappointing inaugural holiday season for the Switch 2, but it did not quite transform the franchise the way Switch 1 iterations of some long-standing series did. There was certainly no shortage of new Nintendo releases in 2025, from Mario Galaxy remasters to Tears of the Kingdom upgrades, but nothing that quite lived up to the sky-high expectations attached to the new hardware around this time last year. And again, the article hits the nail right on the head. This is the exact sentiment that everyone has been saying since the Switch 2 came out. Every release has just been good, and that's at best. At worst, it's horrible, right? I mean, Mario Kart World is good, Donkey Kong Bonanza is good, Pokemon Legends EA was horrible. I mean, it's just look at it, it's horrible. Metroid Prime 4 was fine, Kirby Air Riders was fine. These are all games that are, you can't really rip into them. Like, it's not like they're just the worst thing on the planet, right? But I mean, they're not melting your face off, right? Like, this is a $500 console, and you would expect, like, okay, there's going to be a game that comes out that's just like, oh my god, it's going to blow your mind. And the closest thing we got to that was Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I've gone on record saying I played it a ton. I think it's a good game, right? I would say at best it's probably an 8.5 out of 10, maybe like an 8.75. I don't think I can give it a 9. It gets pretty repetitive as you go through, but it is objectively a good game, right? But it's not a 10 out of 10 experience, and that's the thing. I don't think Nintendo in the last 6 months has come even close to a 10 out of 10 experience, right? And maybe this is Nintendo's own fault, but that is what people expect when they get a brand new console, right? Think about the most popular console releases Nintendo has ever had. Okay, you think about the Switch, we got Breath of the Wild, mind-blowing, right? Think about the Wii, we got Twilight Princess, mind-blowing, right? I love Twilight Princess. Not only that, but you also had Wii Sports, which was like a complete game changer. And I know it's like, it's hard to even look at Wii Sports and be like, oh, that's a 10 out of 10 game, especially because it was free, it was a pack-in, but like, it was free, it was a pack-in, this is just a game you got. And think about how many dozens of hours we spent playing Wii Sports for $0, right? And so Nintendo kind of has this reputation of like, with their most popular consoles comes a groundbreaking release, and people are like holding their breath waiting for that for the Switch 2, and we're more than 6 months in already, we still haven't gotten it, right? We still haven't gotten it, and not only have we not gotten it, we don't know what that game is yet. We don't know, we can't see, like, yeah, they have Mario Tennis coming out and the next Yoshi story, like, are those really those are going to be the blockbuster game changer 10 out of 10 blow your mind, melt your face off? No, those are going to be more games that are good or fine or possibly bad. Let's finish up this article where they talk about the future. There were 4 things that made the first year of the original Switch so special: portability, indie games, games, a great Mario game, and a groundbreaking Zelda. The Switch 2 benefited from none of those things in quite the same way. It still feels like we're in the warm-up phase. Nintendo isn't one to rest on its laurels, but it's also looking beyond just games these days. And here is probably the best and most accurate lines of this entire article. Nintendo's biggest release of 2026 probably won't be on Switch 2. If it performs as well as the first one, the Super Mario Galaxy movie will, in terms of cultural reach and box office prowess, outshine anything that the company can stick on a cartridge. It opened a new Super Mario World theme park location in Orlando this year and continues branching out into real-world experiences, new stores, more toys, and other transmedia products. Yes, precisely, exactly. And that's kind of sad. I mean, when you think about the biggest release of 2026 for Nintendo will be their movie, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, all signs are pointing in that direction. I mean, really, look at the games lineup we have so far, right? We've got a couple of games coming down the pipeline, but again, nothing that's going to melt your face off. And we've got allegedly Gen 10 of Pokemon is coming out at the end of 2026. And if the leaks are anything to be believed, that game is going to be Scarlet and Violet too. I mean, really, like, I know the concept art looks beautiful, but the actual in-game leaks look not very good, if I'm being honest. Okay, I'm gonna withhold my criticisms on that game for when we actually see more official information, but I am bearish on generation 10 for Pokemon, straight up. I am. I just don't think that they can deliver what fans actually want, especially if it's going to be a Switch 2 exclusive. So that's it. The biggest release for Nintendo in 2026 will be the Mario Galaxy movie, and for a gaming company, that is quite sad. And so what is the result of all of this, right? Well, two things. First of all, buyer's remorse, and two, people are looking back at older consoles for games that they can play in 2026. Let's take a look at this Reddit post from 6 days ago. 6 months in, what are people's thoughts on the Switch 2? It's been a little over half a year since the Switch 2 released, and now that the honeymoon phase is likely wearing off, I want to hear people's honest thoughts on the system so far and its overall launch. I held off at launch, but got mine about a month later, the day Bonanza came out. I had a blast with it, and it's probably my 2025 game of the year. Aside from that, the only other first-party game I picked up was Kirby Air Riders, which is also a lot of fun, also playing through Kirby and the Forgotten Land Switch 2 upgrade, and it's been a good time. As far as hardware goes, the Switch 2 feels amazing. It feels much better to hold than the Switch 1, and I find myself using it in handheld mode a lot more than the Switch 1. The added storage is a much needed upgrade as well. Software wise, it does feel a bit lacking, however. It's disappointing to still not have themes, and the UI navigation still feels a lot like the Switch 1's, which isn't bad, just plain. I think the first couple of months of launch felt a bit slow, but we've been getting a new first party title every month for the past few months, which has been nice. I honestly haven't been using my Switch 2 a ton lately, but I think it's because my PS5 has been more of my main console. Once I finish Ghost of Yotei and Expedition 33, I have a whole Switch backlog I'm excited to try with the 2's added power. I think we're going to see this thing pick up a lot in 2026. We've got a new Tomodachi Life, a new Fire Emblem, and more games on the way. Definitely excited to see where the Switch 2 goes in the coming year. Honestly, I feel like this poster is having a pretty average Switch 2 experience, right? I mean, they straight up say it's nice and there's been some good games, but they've really been playing their PS5. And I think when we look at the November sales data, at least in the United States, and the PS5 is outselling the Switch 2 at least 2-1, I think a lot of people are making that exact same decision, right? They're playing their PlayStation 5 and they're buying their PlayStation 5 more than they're playing or buying the Switch 2. I mean, all data and all signs are pointing in that direction. And the problem is, like, when we're in an economy where a lot of people don't have a lot of money to spend, it's like, of course they're going to spend their money on the thing that's the better value proposition. Of course they're going to spend more time on the thing that they think is the best value. And when they go to buy third-party games, they're going to buy it for the more powerful console, which is their main console, which is the PS5 or the PC. And quite frankly, Tomodachi Life is only something that people are excited for if they are hardcore Nintendo fans. That is not, like, average people don't even know what that is. They don't know that this is a thing that's coming out. Same thing with Fire Emblem. I know I've played Fire Emblem, the first and the second one, Sacred Stones, played both of those on the Game Boy Advance, absolutely loved them. I actually have a Game Boy Micro and I used to slide it into my hoodie sleeve in high school, right? I would slide the Game Boy Micro into my hoodie sleeve and I would play Fire Emblem under the desk in school, right? So I love Fire Emblem, but I mean, realistically, this is not a console seller. This is not, like, unless this upcoming Fire Emblem is something we've never seen before, like they completely just break the mold and have this fantastic new formula, and like, maybe, right? Maybe, but I'm not holding my breath, right? So again, I feel like so far in 2026, we have a lot of great games for the enthusiasts enthusiasts. We have a lot of great games for the hardcore Nintendo fans, but we don't have that big thing that's going to blow the Switch 2's player base out of the water, right? At least not yet. Maybe they'll announce it. But the number one top comments on this entire thread is, I probably didn't need to get it as early as I did. And again, I think this is what a lot of people are feeling, and a lot of people are saying this instead of flat out coming out and saying I have buyer's remorse, right? They don't want to say they have buyer's remorse, but they will admit that they don't need to have one right now. So it's like, really all that means is they are optimistic for the future of the Switch 2, and maybe they should be, right? Like maybe they're completely justified in having that optimism. But look at this response, 500 upvotes. As a device, I love it. The Switch 2 games I've played have been great, but I'm getting frustrated at the slow rollout of Switch 2 patches for Switch 1 games. They're starting to pick up, but it's been slow so far, and some that are coming out are only hitting 30 frames per second handheld as opposed to 60 frames per second docked because of the large downclock Nintendo forces in handheld to conserve battery. I wish we had the choice to enable the full performance when we don't care about battery. I hate having to check before I buy a game what resolution / frame rate it is. Is there a patch? Will one be coming? If there is a patch, is it free? Is it paid? Is there an upgrade path from the Switch 1 version? Do we buy the upgrade as DLC through the store or through the Switch 1 game itself? Does the upgrade apply to all versions of the Switch 1 game? Do I have to uninstall the Switch 1 version first to install the Switch 2 version, etc., etc.? They've really done a really bad job with regulating all of that. It would have been great if Switch 1 games defaulted to their docked mode when playing in Switch 2 handheld, so at least we would get 1080p. We're getting there, and I don't regret buying it, but Nintendo aren't helping themselves. This person says it's a great system, but not much exclusive Switch 2 games. Again, almost 400 upvotes here, and I really just wonder, like, how long does a console live on where people say the console is great, but the games aren't, like, they don't have much there, right? Like, that's kind of the whole point in buying a new console, is that you would want new, good, better games. No, like, how long are we going to cling on to, like, oh, they're coming? Like, I know it's only been 6 months, right? Like, again, I'll give them time, I'll give them that, right? Like, maybe the next 6 to 12 months we'll see some game changer, right? Totally understand that, but it just feels weird to read all these comments where they're like, I don't hate it, but like, there's not really good reason to have it. I don't think you would be that generous towards PlayStation or Xbox, but okay. And again, this is the Switch subreddit, right? So these people are being like as generous as possible to Nintendo. I mean, this is where all the glazers would be. This person with almost 200 upvotes says, nothing has released that is interesting to me yet, but I'm glad I got it. Playing my backlog. Wish they'd change some of the Switch 1 games in handheld though. Some are so bad looking that it is difficult to play. My wish for 2026 is a fix for that, a Zelda game that isn't a Hyrule Warriors game, and them to have some options to make the bezels black on Nintendo Switch Online games. So again, we've got another user that agrees that this is kind of just a Switch Pro. I mean, realistically, if you go through, that is what everyone is calling this thing without actually saying that. They're literally just saying, I love the console for my old Switch games. It's like, okay, well, if all it does for you is play your old games better, well, that's kind of just a Switch Pro, is it not? Right? Let's move on to this post from a couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. They say Switch 2 is kind of disappointing so far. I just got a Switch 2 a few days ago. This is the first time I've ever gotten a new console this early in its lifespan. Usually I wait till more games release, but the Black Friday sales were pretty solid. Interesting. So wait a minute. So so when the price goes down, people buy stuff? Wait a minute. What? Bro, that's crazy. Hang on. So wait, so the price really was an issue all along? Is that what's happening? Anyway, I'm 90% sure Nintendo is going to raise the Switch 2 price next year. They raised the price of everything, of all accessories, and even the Switch 1, lol, only a matter of time. So I wanted to get one before that happened, so I decided to make the plunge sooner rather than later. Not gonna lie, the console doesn't feel all that new or exciting so far based on library of games and features. The whole improved performance shtick of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom doesn't do much for me. They're just still the same games at the end of the day, and I dropped them a while ago, and quote, improved performance isn't gonna bring me back. Agreed. Yes, 100%. Like, I beat Breath of the Wild on my Wii U, right? That's how you know I'm a real gamer. I beat Breath of the Wild on the Wii U. I bet a lot of you guys forgot this thing came out on the Wii U, right? It's a whole disc. Like, they put the Breath of the Wild on a Wii U disc. Isn't that crazy? But I have no desire to replay the game on the Switch 2 for improved performance. It's the same game, right? Same thing with Scarlet and Violet. You know, like, the performance on those games was not very good, and now everyone's like, oh, it's so much, bro, it's so much better, bro. They can load like 30 Pokemon on the screen at a time now. It's like, wow. So you're telling me the open world is still empty and there's still no great NPCs to talk to, and it's just a big old green polygon? Yeah, okay. Still not interested. Yeah, it doesn't make me want to come back. I mean, I'm sorry, it just doesn't, right? They go on to say Switch 2 has no new exciting features. I guess the game chat thing is cool, but I've always been been more single player gamer than anything. The new GameCube Virtual Console is cool, but only 4 games, and it's obvious they're going to drip feed one game at a time like they did with N64 games. Yeah, that has been extremely annoying. Okay, just put Pokemon Coliseum on there so we have a good Pokemon game on Switch 2, please. Like, just do it. Okay, just do it. So right now upgrading to that feels pointless to me, and probably will for the next year or so. Mario Kart World is fun, but it's just more Mario Kart, except less content than 8 Deluxe, an empty open world, and more hectic, often feeling even more unfair due to 24 players. Metroid Prime 4 I bought today is the one saving grace. The mouse controls are great, an innovative control scheme, but when I'm not playing Metroid, I'm left with feeling like, damn, where's the new stuff? It's just another Switch. You know what's the crazy part about that too, is that Metroid Prime 4 is on the Switch. You didn't even need a Switch 2 for this. Right now, look, the performance wise, I'm sure it's much better on Switch 2, but like it's funny that like this one thing, the one thing that they love the most, again, is something they didn't actually need, unless they only wanted to play it for mouse controls. But anyway, they go on to say, I'll have to pick up Donkey Kong Bonanza soon since it's brand new, but overall I'm not really impressed. We need a massively good year for Switch 2 in 2026 with brand new games that use the mouse feature because it's really fresh and great. Third parties won't do much for me either. I'd much rather play most of them on my PS5 for better graphics and performance. I've gone years of just having a Switch only and being subjected to shitty ports, and I don't want to go through that anymore. And again, we see the same exact sentiment over and over and over again. If third parties are going to drop, people are going to play it on PS5 or PC. It's just the truth. It just is what it is. That's always how it's been. Nintendo is a first party platform. It always has been. It probably always will be, even if some of the ports are good, right? Even if we've got WWE that plays great on the Switch 2, if we've got Star Wars Outlaws that plays great on the Switch 2, it doesn't matter. The only people that are going to buy them for the Switch 2 are people that haven't played them yet and want to play it in handheld, but most people are just going to play it on their PS5. This post over on Facebook is just somebody asking, is the Switch 2 worth getting at the moment? Yes or no? Cheers. Top comment, no, not one killer app that justifies the price point. Maybe when a new Mario comes out, most games will still come on Switch. This user says the best way I can describe it is it's like getting a new phone, not a new toy. Games on it are good at the moment, but it's begging for that Nintendo charm. Once the new Marios and Zeldas and other big games hit, it'll be much more worth it. I still play mine a lot, but this launch and a few months after have nothing on 2017's lineup and shaking up the industry. This user says I'd wait for better games. Most are ports from Switch 1. There isn't even a traditional flagship Mario other than Mario Kart, and that's probably due to Mario Kart being an online game and normal Mario isn't. This user says, in my opinion, not really, unless you want to play Donkey Kong or Mario Kart really badly. Here's another post in Zelda Universe. What do you think of the Switch 2 now that it's been 6 months since the console release? The top comment is never bothered to buy it since I have the OLED. This person says it doesn't feel like a new console. It's pretty much a Nintendo Switch Pro. I only hope that the next big Zelda game doesn't disappoint like Mario Kart and Metroid both have. Switch 1 was great, but I've been really put off by Nintendo's practices recently, particularly the push against physical releases, and I dislike the old Nintendo games being a subscription model. With the Steam Deck handling all my third-party handheld games, I don't really feel like it's worth getting one just to play Metroid Prime 4 and Hyrule Warriors. Will all depend on what games come out in the future, I guess. This user says not really interested this time around. I still love my OG Switch. This one is overpriced and there's not enough meat on the bone yet to warrant buying one. Also, the digital game card idea is a bit of a turnoff for me. And so after reading the articles and looking at all of the buyer's remorse posts that we've seen on Reddit and GameFAQs and Facebook, we get tweets like this. Somebody saying, I feel like most of the hate the Switch 2 gets is so short-sighted and dumb. This is a console gen that will last 7+ years. Hearing people having quote buyer's remorse because it doesn't have a million exclusives only 6 months in is crazy. Nobody is paying $450 for what's only out now. I get where this user is coming from, although I think it's hilarious that they include a picture of Skyrim of all things, but I think they're intentionally misunderstanding the criticisms of the Switch 2. Nobody's asking for a million exclusives, right? Nobody is asking for that. What people are asking for is at least one really good exclusive for a franchise that the average consumer cares about, right? I'm sorry to say the average consumer doesn't really care about Donkey Kong like they do Mario, like they do Zelda, right? So if you look at the Switch 2 and say, okay, the only good game for the Switch 2 right now is Donkey Kong Bonanza, and then you look at 2017 and say, okay, well, the only good release for the Switch 1 was Breath of the Wild. It's like, those are not the same thing. Okay, Breath of the Wild was a game changer. Donkey Kong Bonanza is good, but it's not a game changer. And I really like this quote tweet here, right? They actually quote tweeted what we just looked at, and they said, I think it's perfectly fine to be underwhelmed. I wouldn't say I have buyer's remorse, but I fully expected more than one good exclusive up to this point. If If next year is great, cool, but that doesn't mean I'm able to get much out of it in the meantime. Exactly this is what everyone's kind of been saying. And that brings us to the Nintendo 3DS, folks. Nintendo 3DS prices are going through the roof and no one's sure why. Really? I think you need to change the title here. I'm pretty sure everyone knows why, right? Like we all know why, right? It's, say it with me now, it's the games, right? The games are good. Yeah, I mean, like, that's pretty much it. Like, they want to buy the console that has the good games. The new 3DS XL is fetching as much as $350 on eBay and prices are climbing. The old Nintendo handheld is now selling secondhand for as much or more than they did at launch. The 3DS, originally released in 2010, was officially discontinued in 2020. It was, despite how you might remember things, a phenomenal success, selling a wild 75.94 million units across its 10 years in various incarnations. Yet despite the apparent ubiquity, demand for the devices is currently skyrocketing, such that a used 3DS XL, which you could have picked up a year ago for under $100, can right now fetch you upwards of $250. All right, folks, you know how we do it here on the channel. We don't just take these articles at face value. We got to take a look for ourselves here. Okay, we're on price charting and we have sorted the 3DS by high to low price, and you can see here that the most expensive piece of 3DS history is the dev kit. Of course, that doesn't count, but here we can see the new Nintendo 3DS XL Majora's Mask limited edition loose is $538. Complete in box is $650. Okay, that's a special edition. The next one is the Fire Emblem Fates edition, $500 loose. New 3DS XL Samus edition, $500 loose. 3DS Pokemon 20th anniversary edition, $500 loose. Barbie Groom and Glam Pups, that's actually just a game. I don't know why that's $500, but anyway, if you have that Barbie game, good for you. Loose is $500. That's crazy. New 3DS XL Pikachu edition, $490. New 2DS XL Hylian Shield edition, $470. This is all loose. New 3DS XL Hyrule edition, $440. That's the one that I have. Fantastic. I got that back when I worked at a retro game store. The SNES edition, $432. Okay, great. That is price charting. Let's look at eBay. So this is sold listings on eBay. Okay, so this is stuff that somebody has already bought. So we're not talking hypothetical prices, right? Like, you could ask for anything. I could ask for $2,000 for my 3DS if I wanted to, right? But that doesn't mean someone's going to buy it. So that's why we look at sold listings to see what are people actually spending on the 3DS. Here we see new 3DS XL handheld metallic red for $285 plus 11 shipping, so that's $300. Here we see the XL Pikachu Pokemon edition is $412. Here we see a complete in box Majora's Mask, holy crap, for almost over $900. Here we see metallic red dual IPS, this is $340 with shipping. Here again we see another 3DS XL metallic red top IPS for about $300. Here we see another metallic gray for over $300, that's $310. Here's $330. Here's another one for $330. This is crazy, bro. This one is pink. That's the pink 3DS XL white rare brand new sealed, $850. 3DS XL black for $508. Here's a 3DS XL with charger is $220. Top screen needs repair. This is still $170 with shipping. Kind of crazy, right? Kind of crazy. This is the new 3DS XL, $277. We've got the X and Y red version is $455. Like, it's crazy, right? Obviously the 20th anniversary red and blue version is crazy expensive. That's $890. As you can see, people are spending $300, $400 on a Nintendo 3DS, and they're doing so willingly and happily, and even if it's a used console. But when we look at the Switch 2, and that's $450 or $500, is the difference in price point there the deal breaker? No, I don't think so. I think if you're willing to spend $350 on a used console, you probably wouldn't mind spending $400 or $450 on a brand new one. And as we saw with Cyber Monday all the way through Christmas, we saw consoles were $400 or $450 for the Switch 2. We reported that on the channel. It seems like people are willing to spend their money on a console that has a value proposition that they can get behind. And when they look at the 3DS, they look at the library of games there and they think, okay, well, all the games are physically on the cartridge and I can play a bunch of great Pokemon games, and we've got Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7 people people remember fondly. And we've got Animal Crossing New Leaf and Tomodachi Life for people that actually are into that. Plus you can play all the old DS games, right? Every old DS game. So you could play Mario 64 on there if you wanted to, or you could play Soul Silver. Okay, the lineup for 3DS is insane, and you look at that and you compare that to 450 for the Switch 2, and it's like, I mean, half the games aren't even Switch 2 exclusive, right? You could play Legend Z on your Switch 1, you could play Metroid on your Switch 1. It seems pretty clear to me why people are buying the 3DS right now. So again, I don't know what this title is all about. I think everyone knows why, but if you were looking for a reason to break out your 3DS again, this is your sign. Pop in some older games and relive some of the best handheld games that Nintendo has ever released. And with that being said, guys, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, consider dropping a thumbs up on it. It really helps out the channel a ton, and you might think that you're subscribed because you've seen a ton of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below.